Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar for today. So I'm going to just wait a couple of minutes just to see if we can get some more people on this webinar. There are a lot of you that wanted to join in, so this is a hot topic for today. And I'm really excited to have Chaney Widmer with us today to really kind of break down what you're going to need to create a successful and thriving eDesign business. So welcome, Chaney.
Thank you so much. This is so fun to be on here and to be talking to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. We should get a lot of great feedback for the webinar. For anyone who is joining this webinar as your first webinar with us, just so you know, if you do have any questions, feel free to add those questions to the chat feed because we'll be doing a Q&A towards the end of the webinar where we're just going to go through all of the questions that have been added there. So if you do have questions, get yours in so that we can get around to answering them. Now, just for anyone who isn't completely familiar with who Chaney is actually the founder of Mix and Match Design Company. And basically, by harnessing the power of technology and using innovative online tools, Mix and Match helps clients create homes they love in a fun and efficient way, all online through eDesign. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Now, over the past several years, Mix and Match has grown into a multifaceted business that serves not only clients, but also interior design businesses as well. And in February, Chaney released an online course for designers or aspiring designers who want to launch their own online interior design business. And this self-paced course provides a quick start guide, which includes everything you need to know to set up a successful eDesign business and pursue your goals. So without further ado, I'm actually going to just turn the reins over to Chaney. I'll let you take full control of this webinar so you can tell everybody what they need to know.
Sounds good. All right, well, I'll go ahead and get my presentation up for you guys. So I'm going to turn my camera off and give it just a couple of minutes to get set up, and then we'll get started. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, Chaney. Just a heads up that I'm seeing the full screen, so the controls at the top and the white section below. So if you can make it full screen to get that presentation larger, that'd be great.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just swapping it over here. Let me know when you can see it.
Perfect.
All right, is the full screen up there?
Not quite yet. There's still a huge white section at the bottom. So, okay. And I can still see the controls at the top of the screen.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, I've lost the controls at the top of the screen, but there's still the white section below.
Okay. Technology, it always works well for you, right?
Exactly. But that's all right. Just take your time. We'll get it all set up.
Okay, let's try one more time.
That's it.
All right, perfect. Okay. All right, well, so we'll go ahead and get started. And thank you so much for the introduction, Sheila. I'm thrilled to be here. And I'm excited to share with you guys a little bit about me, and then we'll get started on this whole back end of your business stuff. I think that it is such a neat topic, and it's something I'm really passionate about as an entrepreneur. I think that a lot of us are coming into this webinar today with some great design skills and a great eye for design. But maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, how do I actually get this business started? And so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So before I hop into that, I'll tell you a little bit more about me. I started Mix and Match back in 2015, and I started it as an eDesign focused business. And like Sheila said, it's grown a ton in the past few years. And I've gone from just serving my eDesign clients to also serving other interior design businesses. So it's been a really fun journey, but it's something that I'm constantly working on. So I've always got more to learn, but I'm excited to take what I've learned and tell you guys all about it today. So like I said, we're going to be talking a lot about the back end of your business today. And when you're embarking on that journey of starting your own company, it's easy to want to jump right into client projects, right? You're going to just go ahead and do all the design work, the fun stuff, and push that back end of your business kind of to the side to tackle later. And you're like, I'll get to that at some point. But if you want to set your online interior design business up for long-term success, you definitely need to prioritize getting the back end into tip-top shape. And if you spend time doing this now, it's going to ultimately lead to more clients, more profit, a better client experience, and it'll help you create a sustainable business that's poised for growth long-term. So what exactly am I referring to when I'm talking about this back end of the business? Well, there are four major areas that I like to think about. So we'll start with administration, and then we'll move into business strategy, operations, and marketing. And today we're going to talk about them each individually, but we're also going to talk a lot about how they relate to one another, because really you can't separate them completely. They overlap a ton. And when you put them all together, you can think of them as sort of a foundation on which you can build your eDesign business. And if you've got all those pieces in place, you'll have a solid foundation to build on. If a piece is missing, however, you're going to quickly find yourself on shaky ground. And without establishing that solid foundation, I can guarantee that you're going to become frustrated, and it will cost you valuable time and money later on down the road. It may even stunt your business's growth and prevent it from taking off like you hoped it would. And I know none of you wants that to happen, right? So my goal for today is to help you avoid all of that. I want to take you on a practical, actionable journey so that you can tackle those back-end details confidently. So by the end of this webinar, you'll be ready to get started on the right foot and feel confident that your business is ready to take on those clients. And be sure to stick around through the end of today because I've got a special freebie for you. Some of you may have read about this in the emails you got from the design files, but basically what I'm doing is offering you a startup checklist for launching your eDesign business. So it's a one-page document, super simple, but it's a high-level summary of the basic tasks that you're going to want to complete before you start offering your eDesign services to your clients. So it's going to include a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, and it'll be a good reference to have on hand as you get started. So I'll share the link to where you can grab your copy at the end of the webinar, so just be sure to stick around until the end. Okay, so before we get started on that back-end stuff, I want to take a deep dive into the big picture. So before you want to figure out these back-end details, you're going to need to figure out your goals for your business as a whole. So figuring out your why and spending some time doing what I call vision casting is going to be really helpful for you as you go from this sort of theoretical dream phase into the practical, and you start taking steps to bring your eDesign business out of that dream phase and into the real world. So having a clear vision of where you want to go is going to help direct your path. So with that in mind, I've got 4 kind of big picture questions for you to mull over. And when you have a few quiet minutes after this webinar is over, I'm going to encourage you to take some time to go through this exercise of answering the questions that you see here up on the screen. So maybe you know the answers to some of them right off the bat, and maybe others will take you a little more thought. But go ahead and grab a piece of paper if you don't have one handy and jot these down. Or if it's easier for you to just grab a screenshot, feel free. That's totally fine with me. And then you'll have them so that you can refer to them later. So the first question is, where are you now? You're going to want to take stock of what you're currently doing. After all, it's pretty hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you are right now. So are you in the design field already? Do you already have a business, but you're feeling like you're not quite, ready to go? Are you working in another field full-time? And, where are you in your life phase? Are you a full-time mom? Are you married? Are you single? All those kinds of things. You want to figure out how you spend your time now and what your priorities are personally and professionally. The second question is, why do you want to start an eDesign business? Or if you've already started, why did you go this direction? Why did you start an eDesign business to begin with? Maybe you were looking for a career change, or maybe you wanted to start a side hustle to make a little bit of extra income. It may even be that you're looking to add eDesign to a full service interior design business. So whatever that is, make sure you define your why. Third, ask yourself, what are your big goals and what would your ideal business look like? So everybody's goals are going to look a little bit different, but remembering these is what's going to help you keep going. Because there are times when you're going to get caught up in the weeds of entrepreneurship, and you're going to want to have these handy to pull you back out to see the big picture. Finally, the fourth question is, who will be your cheerleaders? And who are you going to have around you to be a support system? I'm guessing that a lot of you who are watching today are probably planning to start your businesses solo, so on your own. And that can be a really hard and lonely journey unless you have a good support system. So that can be your spouse, it could be friends, family members, or even other people in the design community. But whoever it is, you want to choose people who are going to be able to encourage you and be a good sounding board when you need it. I personally joke that my husband is my unofficial business partner. And honestly, I don't think that my company would be where it is today if I didn't have his amazing support and his business savviness. It doesn't hurt that he's also willing to chat all things entrepreneurship just about any time of the day. But I think that you can all find someone like that to be your sounding board, to be your encouragement, and just, find your people. It's going to help you really, get going on the right foot. Okay, so now that we've zoomed out and talked about the big picture a little bit, let's zoom in and talk about these 4 back-end areas of business. So as a reminder, they are administration, business strategy, operations, and marketing. So we'll get into administration first. And administration is a broad category. It really plays a role in a lot of things in business, as I'm sure you guys know. But for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to focus on the major one-time tasks that you're going to need to check off before you really do anything else. Certainly when you're running a business, there's a constant flow of administrative tasks, and you'll have to take care of those as they come up. But we're going to take this one step at a time and start out with the big stuff. So first of all, you're going to need to give your business a name. And that might seem obvious, but it's actually super important administratively. So practically, you're going to need to have a name to move forward with things like creating the legal structure of your business, like an LLC, for example. You're going to need it to file the state and local paperwork or the federal paperwork and apply for things like the employer identification number, if you're in the US at least. I'm not sure what that equivalent is internationally, but it's basically like your business's social security number. And you're going to need to find it or get one so that you can provide it for many various purposes. One example would be that along with your business name, you're going to need that EIN to set up a business checking account, which is something that I highly suggest you do right away, because keeping your personal and business finances separate is a really smart idea for both accounting and legal reasons. And finally, you're going to want to buy a domain name for your website that's based on your business name. And honestly, I might even check to make sure that the domain name is available before you officially name your business. And while you're at it, see if you can get the social media handles for that name too. All of this is about creating a recognizable and cohesive web presence, which is a crucial part of having a successful eDesign business, since most of what you're going to be doing is online. So we're going to get to more details about that whole branding and marketing stuff in another section, but just keep that in mind as we go through this. And also, you're going to want to make sure that there isn't already a design business out there with the name that you want to use. So for example, if your name is Sally Ann Smith and you want your business to be Sally Ann Design, do a Google search on that name. If there's already a Sally Ann Design out there, then that's probably not going to work very well. Even if that Sally Ann isn't an interior designer, so let's say she's actually a wedding dress designer or something, you don't want to have to compete with her on SEO or brand recognition or create any confusion for your potential clients. And that person probably already owns the web address of sallyanndesign.com. So, that's just something that you want to keep in mind, because it would be a shame if you did all of the paperwork and did your legal filing only to find out that someone else already has your business name. So do your due diligence and take your time. Remember that your name is a representation of you and the brand that you're trying to establish. So choose wisely. But, this should be an exciting task too, because naming your business makes it all start to feel real. The next major administrative task you're going to want to take care of is figuring out your office setup. So where exactly are you going to work? And what equipment do you need to be ready to take on client projects? As a designer, again, this should be a super fun task because you get to flex those creative muscles and set up an office space that you enjoy working in every day. And while it might be tempting to skip this at the beginning and default to your sofa or dining room table, I would actually discourage that, because creating a designated workspace, even if it's just a corner of a bedroom for now, it'll help you feel legit and give you a place to be all in. I know a lot of e-designers, including myself, work from home, and that helps keep costs down, and it's just simpler to do it that way. But if you feel like you need to get out of the house to make this thing work, you can also look into places like a co-working space or renting a dedicated office. Do whatever works best for you and your work style. And not only is this whole office setup thing a good idea to help you feel legit, but it's good for your mental sanity and your work-life balance to be able to physically leave work every day. Because this is going to be something that's all-consuming. Your business is a big deal. And trust me, I've been working from home for almost 4 years, and I've learned the value of being able to just shut the door at the end of the day, if you know what I mean. You're also going to want to think about what equipment you're going to need for this business, and particularly what physical equipment are you going to need to get a legit office setup. So at a minimum, what you're going to want is a laptop, a mouse, a desk, a comfortable desk chair because you'll be sitting in it a lot, a printer, and some storage. And I'd say those are the essentials. So soon after I got my business started, I realized that I might need a couple of extra things as well. And I discovered that it was a lot better for my neck and my back and my eyeballs to have a big monitor to work off of. So that meant I needed a separate keyboard as well. And again, you're going to want to figure out just what you need to do to work best and make adjustments as you need to. Also, I know that some people like using a tablet like an iPad. And if you ever decide to do in-person consultations with folks, it can come in handy. But I found I haven't really needed it for eDesign. But since everybody works differently, you're going to want to figure out if that's something that you want to have around. And I know that maybe a lot of you out there, if you haven't started yet, you're thinking, ooh, this seems like a big investment up front. And sometimes, money can be tight before you start taking on clients. But, work with what you have. There are lots of ways to make this work, but just invest in certain things along the way, because I feel like that if you get your business set up well at the beginning, you're going to run it well as it goes on later down the road. So once you're set up in terms of your physical office space, you're going to want to spend some time getting organized on the digital front, which is the next administrative task that we're going to talk about today. So getting organized on the digital front is something that I would encourage you to tackle early on. And what I mean by that is that I want you to create a digital filing system on your computer. So this is going to prevent you from having a crazy cluttered desktop, which I know I've been there before, but let's try and avoid that. And you'll always know exactly where to look for things if you create this system. There's nothing more frustrating than digging around on your computer for that one little important file and not being able to find it. I know everybody's brains work differently, but I wanted to share the basics of how I have my digital filing system set up. And I'm not including every single folder that I have on here because that would be crazy, but I want to keep things simple and streamlined and just show you an idea of what this might look like. This particular system works well for me, and I hope that it's something you can take and adapt. Or at the very least, it'll prompt you to spend some time figuring out a system that works for you. Okay, so starting at the top, I have one big parent folder, and that's appropriately named Mix and Match Design Company, like my business name. And within that folder, I have several subfolders. I listed 5 of them here for you. And so starting from the left, we've got eDesign clients, administrative, financial, marketing, and blog. Since the blog is a big part of my business, thought I would include that here as well. So within some of these folders, I have even more subfolders. And for some, I just file items directly. So for example, you can see that within my eDesign clients folder, I have a subfolder for each year. And then within that, I have a folder with each client's name on it. Every item that has to do with that client goes in their folder. So that means their design boards, their onboarding items, before photos, after photos, all of that stuff goes into that folder. So that way, if I ever need to refer back to something or find something related to that client, I can quickly and easily locate it. And in my world, the more folders, the merrier. The more specifically I can file something away, the easier it is to find later on. Another tip is to name your files appropriately and descriptively. So you want to make them recognizable so when you're scrolling through things quickly, you can identify what you need. So the big theme here is to set yourself up well now so that you'll be organized and efficient later on once you start getting busy. And once you've been in business for a few years, you'll have a ton of files. So if you get your system in a good place right now, you're always going to be able to find what you need, even if it is several years old. Okay, so that wraps up the administrative piece of the backend puzzle. And checking the box on these things is one building block for that sturdy foundation we're trying to build. Of course, as we talked about before, as your business gets off the ground, you're going to find plenty of other administrative tasks to take care of. But today, we're just focused on what you need to do at the very beginning. So with those all set, at least on paper, let's hop over to the next part of getting our backend in order, business strategy. Now, if the idea of business strategy sounds a little intimidating, or maybe it even sounds like it's something that came straight out of an MBA class, that's okay. But let me let you in on a little secret. All it is just coming up with the plan for how your business will achieve its goals. So remember those vision casting questions I asked you at the very beginning? This is the part where you'll start to bring those goals to life. You really can't come up with a strategy to achieve your goals if you don't have solid, concrete goals. So in case you missed it before, I'll say it again. Spend some time thinking about your goals and what your ideal business would look like. Goal setting and strategy really go hand in hand, and you can't really have one without the other. So when you're getting ready to launch, your business strategy should center around creating that business plan. And to get you started, I've put together 6 essentials that should be included in that business plan. So let's go through those together. Start by coming up with the basic concept for your eDesign business. And what I mean by that is that you want to define what you're actually offering. So what does offering eDesign mean to you? What is that service going to provide to your clients? And what is it going to do for you as a business? So write down that concept and clearly define what eDesign is and what it's not. Once you know what you're doing, you're going to be able to move forward into figuring out the rest of your business plan. Number 2 is coming up with your ideal client characteristics. So who are you trying to serve? And what does that person look like? If you don't know who you're trying to reach, it's going to be really hard to market specifically to them. So I'd imagine that a lot of you have sort of the ideal client in mind that you would love to work with. So how are you going to create a business that actually reaches that person? Number 3 is figuring out what your packages are going to offer specifically. Are you going to offer different types of services or packages? And what are they going to include? Also, it's important to figure out what you aren't going to offer as a part of your eDesign service. You want to make sure that you set up the expectations for your clients so they know exactly what they're going to get on their end too. When I first started my business, I really wanted to be able to do everything people asked me to do and do all the things for all the people, but I quickly learned that there were some things that worked and there were some other things that ended up being a complete time suck and just not worth my time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error on those things, so don't be afraid to try something new and different. And then once you've had a chance to test it out, reflect on it. Was that something you enjoyed? And was it a good use of time? If not, go back and edit what you offer. Take out what's not working and remember that it's your business, so you can make it what you want. That's one of the joys of working for yourself. Number 4 comes right on the heels of number 3. And you could really group those two things together, but they are distinct. Once you have your packages, you've got to figure out how you're going to price them. Are you going to charge a flat fee or hourly? And what's going to be included in those packages for that price? And what are your overall revenue goals? How are you going to achieve those? You want to start with the target number that you want to make in, let's say, a year or a month, and then work backwards and figure out how many people you're going to need to work with at what price point in order to reach those revenue goals. So that model, that revenue model, should include things like revenue per client and how many people you're going to work with, and then how much time you're going to spend on each project. Because I think that as designers, we tend to get really involved in these projects, and we need to figure out how much time we're actually spending on each one. And if we're spending too much time on a project and not charging enough, then we're not going to be able to reach our revenue goals in the amount of time that we're putting out there. Number 5 also has to do with numbers, but this time it's about what you're going to have to put into the business financially to get it off the ground. All businesses take some sort of investment to get started, even if it's small. And thankfully, typically the startup costs of an eDesign business can be fairly low, and it's pretty easy to keep overhead costs down. But this is something to think through. So for example, do you already have some of the office equipment that we talked about earlier? Or are you going to need to invest in things like a new laptop, a desk, a printer, those kinds of things? And how about the legal costs of getting a business started? So if you have to file paperwork to get an LLC set up, what's that going to cost you? And then there are also things to consider like the software that you're going to use, which may require a subscription or yearly fees, or other aspects of running your business may cost some money. So think about how much you can invest personally, and if you're going to need to find other sources of capital when you first get started. Finally, number 6 is all about marketing. So how are you going to get the word out? Now, I'm going to leave you hanging a little bit on this one because we've got a whole section devoted to it later after I talk about the business operations parts of things. But like I mentioned at the beginning, all of these things overlap. And for now, just remember that this is a big one. If you do all of this work to get your business set up and ready to go, but don't have a plan in place for how to tell people about it, you're going to hear crickets. It's going to be pretty quiet out there. And getting clients in the door can be one of the most challenging aspects of starting this service-based business. But if you have a good marketing plan in place, you're going to feel confident that they'll start coming in if you keep at it. So with these 6 keys in mind, take some time to flesh out your business plan more fully. I know it can feel like a big task, but breaking it down into these parts and creating that solid plan is going to make you be totally set up for success. It's like setting off on a cross-country road trip with a map in hand. Think about the opposite thing if you didn't have a map in hand. You might find your way eventually, but it's going to take a lot longer, and you're going to have to stop, ask for directions, all that kind of stuff along the way. So if you know where you're going and how you're going to get there, it's going to be a lot more fun, and you're going to feel more confident too. And if you need a little bit of extra motivation, get some accountability. So remember those people, that community that we started talking about earlier? Tell a business savvy friend or multiple people that you trust that you're going to create this business, and see if they're willing to go through it with you. A lot of times when you present something to somebody else, it makes you take a look at all of the details and create a cohesive, well thought out plan. And it's going to give you some outside perspective too, which can be helpful. So that brings us to topic number 3, operations. When we're talking about operations, we're referring to pretty much anything that helps your business keep running and that helps it be productive and efficient. Because when you're productive and efficient, you're going to be making the best use of your time. And time is your most precious asset as an entrepreneur. By figuring out how to run your company well and establish good systems and processes, you're going to be able to maximize your profits. And that's one of the big goals of starting a business, right? Make the maximum amount of money in as little time as possible. And I don't mean that in a greedy, let's all get rich kind of way, but if I had to guess, I'd say one of the reasons you wanted to get into this eDesign business is to support yourself and your family and to have a sweet lifestyle to go with it. So in order to do that, we need to run our businesses really well. And while we can't possibly cover everything on this topic today, I do want to highlight some key ideas. These are things that you're going to want to work on early on in order to bring order to your business and make it highly productive. So investing in these business ops now is going to serve you really well in the long run. Are you sensing a theme here? So first of all, before you can make your processes and systems productive and efficient, you're going to have to figure out what those processes and systems actually are. Ask yourself, what do you need to run an eDesign business on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? When you think about it in general terms like that, it can feel super overwhelming. And if you try to just get yourself to start brain dumping all the things that you have to do, I'm guessing you're going to run out of steam pretty quickly. At least I would. And maybe some of you can work that way, but that's not how my brain works. And I think there's a better way. Here's how I suggest that you tackle it more strategically. First, get out a few sheets of blank paper. Or if digital is more your style, open a new spreadsheet. Along the top, list out the headings for different types of processes and systems you need to have in place. So the big ones I would start with are eDesign projects, finances, marketing, and administration. Those last two might look familiar since they're two of the major back end of your business topics we're talking about today. But like I mentioned at the beginning, all of these things intersect with and interact with each other. Administration already got its own airtime today, and we'll get to marketing in a few minutes, but they fit right in here too. So now that you've got those listed out, start to think through what needs to get done under each of those headings. So for example, while we already talked about figuring out what your eDesign packages are going to be, now we need to talk about how you're going to run that project from start to finish. So if a client showed up tomorrow and wanted to work with you, would you say you have a system in place, or do you need to work out some of those kinks? You're going to want to think about how you're going to onboard those clients first, and then move them into the design phase, and finally, deliver the final product to them. Once you have that general outline, you're going to try to figure out what software or tools you're going to need to help you get it all done. There are some fantastic ones out there that will help streamline everything from invoicing clients, design presentation, client communications, all that stuff. And I will give a little shout out to DesignFiles here as one of those awesome tools. And Sheila did not ask me to say anything about it, but I use it every day for all of my client projects. And it's really changed the way that I run my business. So I figure I can give it a little bit of an endorsement here. You're also going to want to figure out how to keep track of your products, what software you're going to use to create your design boards, and how you'll deliver your client's final shopping list. Basically, I'm trying to get you to think through this process ahead of time so that you'll be 100% ready to go once that first client walks through the door. Or if you're already taking clients, think through your processes and if they're working or not. Are there places that you need to make adjustments? Are there some different tools you should be checking out? All that kind of stuff. And the more you can standardize this process, the more efficient you're going to be with your time, and it will ensure that you're providing the same level of service to each client. It'll take some trial and error at the beginning, probably, to tweak and hone your processes. So do give yourself some grace there, but it's going to serve you well if you put in some hours at the beginning and really chart out what that process is going to look like while you have time. And if you're tuning in today and already taking clients, but you're kind of like, I'm not sure I have this all figured out, I've been flying by the seat of my pants, that's okay. Again, it's never too late to start. And after you start taking those clients, consistently take time to audit your processes, see what's working well and see what's not working well. If there are new, different, or better tools out there or a different way to order things, make sure you take time to evaluate that and make the changes that you need to. Okay, so that covers the business ops for eDesign projects. And let's zoom back out and cover the other headings here quickly for a second. So under finances, think about what you're going to need to do to keep your backend in good shape. The eDesign business is typically quite simple when it comes to bookkeeping, as long as you're not buying and reselling product. If you have a straightforward eDesign business, you'll basically be collecting eDesign fees up front from your clients as your income, and then subtracting your expenses. So you can use a software like QuickBooks Online to track your money in and out, or you can keep it simple and just use Excel. Honestly, I use Excel because my business is so simple, but it just depends on whether you're working with a bookkeeper or an accountant or something like that, and figure out what they're going to want you to use. And speaking of accounting, especially taxes, you may want to hire that out. So if you happen to be an accounting whiz and feel comfortable filing your small business's taxes, great. Personally, I hire this out because I think investing a little bit of money to have someone else take care of my taxes is probably worth it to avoid mistakes that I might make and to make sure I'm handling all the deductions properly. It's something that would take me forever to do, and I think that there are more valuable ways that I can spend my time. So as entrepreneurs, we do tend to wear a lot of hats, but we don't have to wear all the hats. And this is one example of a hat that I will happily let somebody else wear. As for marketing, the parts that fall under business operations are the actual steps you take to carry out your marketing plan. So this is the day-to-day stuff and also the weekly to monthly stuff. We'll talk about getting your actual marketing plan and strategy all set up in the next section, but think about marketing as having a bunch of different buckets to fill. You've got your social media bucket, your email bucket, your networking bucket, and so on, and they all need filling. You're going to need to have a plan in place to fill those and distribute everything in a strategic way. You'll also want to take time to analyze what's working and what's not. So get your hands on some stats if you can, and think about things like how many impressions your Facebook posts are getting, or how many views a blog post has. Remember that you're trying to come up with efficient and effective ways to operate your business, and part of that is assessing what you've done and make adjustments accordingly. And finally, the administrative part of operations is pretty straightforward. So like we've talked about earlier, there are administrative tasks to do in just about every corner of your business. I'm not going to list them all out here, but I did add a few to this table. So for example, you'll need to figure out how you're going to invoice your clients and how they're going to purchase your packages. You'll also need to subscribe to the software you're going to use, and you'll need to keep up with updating your website regularly. So as you can see, there is a ton of overlap between all of these toppings and headings. It's really like a big web. And understanding each of them individually is great, but integrating them is one of the keys to getting your businesses set up for success and off on the right foot. So with that, let's transition to the final topic for today and bring this webinar in for a landing, and that's marketing. Marketing is about more than just advertising or posting on social media. To be successful, you'll need a multi-pronged approach that involves research, idea generation, content and material creation, and action. Your marketing strategy should ultimately be about crafting a brand that represents you and your goals, and then publicizing that like crazy across all sorts of channels. I want you guys to shout it from the rooftops that you started this eDesign business. And when you're starting up, there is a lot of upfront work you need to do before you can even begin to market it. You need to have actual stuff to show people, and you need to have the right channels set up to promote it. So let's talk about your overall marketing strategy. This is all about mapping out what needs to happen to start bringing those clients in. Start by listing what you need to do and what channels you need to use. I've got some basic ideas up here to get you started, but spend some time coming up with your own list too. This is definitely not an exhaustive list of all the things that you could do to do your marketing in your business. So one of the first things you should do is work on your brand elements and your logo. Brand elements are things like colors, symbols, and your tagline. These need to represent you and your new company well, so think about how you want to be portrayed and how people will react to those. Think of this as creating your brand's personality. You want to attract your ideal clients with your brand and repel the ones who don't exactly fit. To use my business as an example, Mix and Match's primary colors are navy and gray. The ampersand is my key symbol, and my tagline is affordable and approachable interior design services for everyone. I wanted to create a brand that was crisp, clean, and gender neutral. There aren't a lot of frills with my brand, and that's purposeful. So think about how you want your brand to look and design it accordingly. Once you have those brand elements, you'll be able to start developing marketing collateral and setting up your website. Marketing collateral is things like business cards and one-pagers that explain what you offer. You can hand these out at all kinds of networking events, share them with friends, neighbors, everybody you know. You can see a couple of examples of my marketing collateral up on this slide. So in the top left, I've got a one-pager, and this has some really brief information about eDesign and about my company. And this particular piece is something I give to realtors and developers so that they can share them with their clients who ask about interior design help. It has the basics of eDesign and ways to contact me to start a project as well. Next to that is a postcard that I've used at a bunch of different events. So on the front, it has images of my projects so that people can see what my style is. And it also has my contact info, social links, and a QR code for a free download. On the back, there's a bunch of information about eDesign. Because I find that people don't really know what it is, I need to explain it on these pieces of marketing collateral. You can also see that there's an image of my business cards up there in the top right. And these have the same look and feel as the rest of my marketing materials. Now, notice that those three items I just mentioned, so the business cards, the postcard, the one-pager, they're all physical. Of course, they could be sent along digitally, but the point I want to make is that just because you're running an online business doesn't mean that you can't do in-person marketing as well. In fact, it's a great way to build your network, to establish trust, and get your name out there. I've done a surprising amount of in-person networking, and it's really paid dividends in my business. Now, of course, a lot of your marketing will happen online as well. And one of the most critical parts of the digital side of marketing is your website. It's your central hub, and it's where everyone is going to go at some point, so it's crucial to make it good. A good website educates people about who your company is. It shows them what you can do, and invites people to come on in and learn more and stick around. This is also the place where you can share your projects in a digital portfolio. Those photos are extremely powerful marketing tools, and they're going to help you attract your ideal clients as well. You can either create your website yourself on a platform like Squarespace or WordPress, or if you're not feeling super tech savvy in this area, you can always hire it out. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it should be lovely to look at because this is a visual business after all. It should be clear, and it should have everything a potential client would need to decide to start a project with you. Or if you're not quite ready to begin, or if they're not quite ready to begin, you want to give them the option to do something to allow you to stay in touch, like join an email list. Now, next on our strategy list is social media. And I'm guessing when I introduced this topic of marketing, social media was one of the first things that came to your mind, wasn't it? And it is really important. Social media is a great way to get your name out there and consistently get in front of people. These platforms allow you to share your work, advertise your services, whether that's in paid advertising or free. They provide inspiration, and they help create a community who's excited about your business. The more people consistently see your name, the more top of mind you will be. And that's a key to marketing. If you're at the top of their minds and they like you, they're going to be more inclined to want to work with you themselves or recommend you to a friend. For most e-designers, Facebook and Instagram are probably the most applicable, but don't forget about the others as well. It's a good idea to at least sign your business up for an account, regardless of whether you're super active or not. The more channels you're on, the easier it is for people to find you, but you also shouldn't feel like you have to at all. You do need to strike a balance because, like we've talked about before, your most valuable asset is your time. Figuring out how to best allocate it is going to serve you and your business well in the long run. And on a side note, you'll notice that Pinterest isn't up here. And that's because it's not a social network. It's actually more of a digital search engine. And I'm not going to talk about Pinterest specifically today, but it is a fabulous place for designers to be since it's so visual and the content can get pinned again and again and again. And so especially if you're creating some shareable content on a blog or something like that, Pinterest is a great place to be. Another fantastic way to get the word out about your business is through publicity. And this can be as simple as someone reposting an image on Instagram or as big as having your work published in a national magazine. Publicity can be a powerful marketing tool for your business because every time something is published, it's really like a third-party endorsement. This establishes credibility, and people are more likely to see your company as trustworthy and value your expertise. You can see that I've pulled together a list of ideas for publicity on this slide, and feel free to grab a screenshot of it if you'd like to take it and file it away for later. But the key is that these are opportunities that you can pursue. And while it's great to have people come to you and ask you to publish things that you've done, a lot of these opportunities come as a result of pitching your story or content. And you need to just get yourself out there. It takes time and effort, but it can have a major impact on the growth of your company. And finally, the last marketing idea I want to talk about is paid advertising. You can pay to advertise through a lot of channels. So be it a Facebook ad or something like sponsoring a podcast episode. This method can be a helpful part of your overall marketing strategy, and it can increase your exposure outside of your existing network. This can ultimately lead to the end goal of booking new clients. Now, the options for paid advertising are endless, which is both good news and bad news, but you're able to try a lot of different things and see how they work. Be sure to make some smart decisions about where to use your hard-earned dollars, but don't be afraid to try some new and different things. Okay, so that brings me to the end of what I have to share with you guys today. I hope that this information has been helpful and that you feel more prepared to tackle the behind-the-scenes parts of your business. And I promise if you take some time to work on these things now, it's going to serve you really well in the future. And before we get to the Q&A part of the webinar, as promised, I want to share two things. So first is the free startup checklist that I mentioned at the beginning. So this is a one-pager that's a great resource for you to refer to as you begin your adventure in eDesign. You can keep it handy to make sure you're on track with getting your backend all set up. So to find it, you can see the web address right here on the screen, but I'll read it out to you as well. It's bit.ly/eDesignBizChecklist. So that's bit.ly/eDesignBizChecklist. And second, if you found this webinar helpful and want to take a deep dive into all the nuts and bolts of starting an eDesign business, you can check out my online class called How to Launch an eDesign Business. I'll help you figure out your business model, talk more about how to get clients in the door, walk you step by step through an eDesign project, and give you all the tools that you need to carry out client projects and run your businesses smoothly and efficiently. And it comes with a bunch of other materials and a workbook as well. So there's just lots going on in that course. I've even got a bonus for you on how to create design boards in Photoshop. So you can learn more about that class at this website that you see right here. And it's bit.ly/eDesign course. And just if you're watching this live, know that registration opens up again on Monday, June 4th. So just a few days from now. And it's going to be open for 2 weeks. And if you happen to be watching this webinar at a later time, know that this is a course that I open up a few times a year, but it'll be available probably again in the fall. So if you're interested, you can sign up starting on Monday or get on the email list to learn more and to stay in touch with what's going on. So, okay, let's get into some Q&A.
Okay, so thank you so much, Chaney. If you're able to switch out of your screen sharing, you can pop back on. There we go.
All right.
And we'll just start into the Q&A. So that was fantastic. You really broke it down.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to make it super actionable and something that you can take today and move forward with and really move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that was fantastic. Now, we did have some questions come in, so I just want to kind of scroll down here to see if I can find that one from Stephanie. One second here.
Okay.
There you are. Okay. So Stephanie was saying, do you find in-person clients through your eDesign? There's nothing like real portfolio images rather than just mock-ups, which is all I have at this point. So if you could give some advice to Stephanie about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that, as an eDesigner, you do worry about because so much of your business happens online. And the way that I've mitigated the risk of that a little bit is to focus on getting some local clients. So I work with a lot of clients through eDesign who happen to be local. I find that people, even if they are, within my neighborhood, will often be fine with working online. And if it's a project that's worthy of portfolio images, then I'll ask them after it's all done and go out and shoot. I think a lot of clients are open to that, which is really nice. I mean, they're proud of the work they've put in. You're proud of the work you've put in. So all it takes is checking in with them and asking if that's okay to shoot their projects. And I've gone as far as, Washington, D.C. I'm in Philadelphia, but I've gone down there to shoot some projects as well. So, don't be afraid to go a little bit outside of your super local network and see if you can get some images from those different projects.
Perfect. Great. Now, Bonnie was wondering if you could share a little more about eDesign tools and resources. So the ones that you like. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have several. So I've worked through a bunch of different platforms and tools and softwares since I started business, and there are always new ones that pop up and that are available. But the ones that I use primarily are Photoshop. So that's what I use for my design boards. In terms of client communications and getting feedback on my designs, I use DesignFiles, like I mentioned. And I really do use that for 100% of my clients. I'm not just saying that because I'm on this webinar. But it's a great tool for eDesign. It's actually, I feel like it's the most targeted towards eDesign. You don't have to tweak things or kind of like do workarounds to use it for eDesign, which is wonderful. And then I've also used some other tools that are really basic that help you kind of get the back end stuff worked on. So I use Excel for a lot of different things. So in terms of keeping track of client budgets, I make a very basic spreadsheet for every client and put the links to the products that I'm just sort of brainstorming through at the beginning into those spreadsheets. And then once everything's finalized, I put it into, the final shopping list through design files or however I'm sending that over.
Okay. Now, we've got another question here. When you do eDesign, how do you choose a wall color for the room without being there? So wall color paint depends so much on the light of the room. So yeah, any advice you can provide on that?
Yeah, so my policy with paint is that I don't actually pick the paint colors. So what I do, because like you're saying, there's so many different ways that can change with the light or with the way that the artificial lighting is versus natural light. So what I tell people is that I'll give you 3 to 5 different paint colors that I think would look good in there. And what I need you to do on your end is go buy samples. So you're going to go buy your 3 to 5 samples of those colors, either put them up on the wall or paint a poster board and stick that up on the wall, and then make your decision based off of that. So I'm going to guide you in the general color scheme, and then it's kind of up to you to take that bull by the horns, if you will, and actually make the final judgment. And I'm happy to chime in with clients, but I need for them to put in some work on their end to make sure that paint color is going to work.
Yeah, and you know what? That's really the way it is with eDesign projects. It is you are working together with your client. Yeah. That's kind of the deal they make when they're going to take on an eDesign project. So yeah. It's good to work with them in that way.
Yeah, and you have to have people understand that eDesign is very collaborative. This is not a do-it-for-you service. It's a do-it-with-you service. And right. I think that knowing that distinction ahead of time is really important. So setting up your client's expectations are something that you can talk about on your website. It's through materials you give them at the beginning of projects. All those kinds of things need to work together to pull off a successful eDesign project.
Okay. Now, Julie is asking, can I put my eDesign services on my existing blog or should I create a new website?
I think that depends on what your current blog is. So if you're running a design blog or even a lifestyle blog, something that has to do with home in some way, I think you can list them on the same website. And if you do have a nice kind of following or if your blog has some traction, it's actually good to use that SEO that you've already built and add your services to that existing platform. So if you can create kind of a separate page or a separate shop for your eDesign services on your existing blog, I think that's a nice way to use that platform that you already have set up. But if your blog is not related at all and it feels like a push to be able to add those services, you might consider just kind of starting from scratch on that. That's actually what I did. So I wrote a design sort of DIY blog for a number of years before I started my business. And I found that my audience really wasn't going to translate to a design focused audience. And so I ended up starting from scratch in 2015. So you can do it for sure. It does take more work to do it that way, but I think that it can be worthwhile in the long run.
Okay. Now, Anna is asking, at the time when you have a mood board delivered to your client, do you use affiliate links and do you find it profitable?
I do use affiliate links, yes. So I charge a flat fee per room for my services. And then with the shopping list I deliver, I do use affiliate links on top of that. And so I think it's profitable, but you have to educate your clients. So what I found when I first started was I was just kind of, putting them in there and disclosing that I was using affiliate links, but I wasn't really telling clients that that's what was going on and how it was helpful for them. So I feel like I'm able to keep my design services at an affordable level because I make some money on the back end with those affiliate links. And so telling my clients that this is helping your fee stay affordable. And if you purchase through these links, then I do make a small commission, but it's for both of our benefits. So I think that it is something that can work really well. But again, it depends on budget as to how profitable it is. If they have $1,000 budget and you're earning 5% on affiliate links, it's not a whole lot of money, but it's something. But if they're spending $10,000 on a room, all of a sudden those numbers start to really make a whole lot of sense.
Okay. Now, I guess kind of tied to that question, we have another one from Mary, and she's saying, do you use secret Pinterest boards with shoppable links, and if so, do you get a percentage on the sale?
That's a good question. So that's one way you could do it. If you want to send your shopping list through Pinterest in a way. I don't do that just because I find that Pinterest doesn't really allow you to make it look as professional and as custom as I want it to be. But that's me being picky. So I think you certainly can. But I like the idea of using a service or even a spreadsheet that you can make look like your branding and that looks professional and that isn't something that everyone can just kind of hop on to use. Even if it's a secret board, I do think it's kind of nice to have something that's, easy to refer to later on, that's really just for your client, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, Mary, you have a second question, and it's actually about design files. You were wondering if design files.
That's software you'd use.
Yeah, exactly. We'll start to offer the ability to create boards instead of the need for Photoshop. So just in case you are unaware, DesignFiles actually does have a mood board creator. So you can build out simple 2D concept boards. You can build out 3D room designs on DesignFiles. And we are building in additional tools that will get you closer and closer to the functionality that you would get in Photoshop. So our new tool that is going to be coming out soon is a distort tool, and it's going to allow you to kind of distort a product so that you can, for instance, better angle a rug on the floor, or angle curtains on the window, or just better angle a chair so that it fits within your 3D design. So that is coming soon, and we are just going to keep adding those extra features until it is dead simple for you to pull together your design boards. So I would definitely say give it a go. If you haven't tried creating a design board on DesignFiles yet, give it a go. Let me know what you think. I love hearing feedback. And there are videos in our resources page that will show you how to create a 3D room from scratch and a 2D simple concept board from scratch. So check out the resources page.
And I'll add on to that I think that if you're not proficient in Photoshop or that's intimidating, I think that the DesignFiles tool is great. That's a really good place to start. And if you find that you're kind of maxing out the tool, then you can maybe start to use Photoshop, or, maybe DesignFiles will be ready for you at that point with more tools. But it actually looks really, really nice. So I would give it a try if you aren't using Photoshop.
Okay. Now, Kristen is asking, does your eDesign course go into more detail on the pricing strategy for packages?
It does, yes. So I take you through a lot of a module on that, actually. So with my course, I have 4 main modules that are pre-recorded videos. And part of one of them is all about that, getting your packages put together, working backwards from how much profit you want to make back to how many packages you're going to have to sell. And I have a financial model for you that you can actually input your own numbers into and figure that out for yourself.
Okay. Now, let's see here. Elizabeth, she's asking, have you had any issues with product quality when doing eDesign, and how do you deal with returns?
It's a great question also. So I think that, again, it's about setting up client expectations. I think most people are just kind of used to working online, buying things online now, and knowing that there's going to be probably some hitches along the way. But I think that one of the ways that you can hedge against that is to make sure that your terms and conditions or your contract handle those things. So most of the time, eDesign is set up so that you don't touch anything after you deliver the shopping list. The whole point is that you're delivering it to the client so that they can take that and create their room themselves and make all their purchases. So really, it's on the client at that point to deal with returns or damages or things like that. I haven't had any clients complain about that. I think because it's in my terms and conditions as like I provide the service and then it's up to you to implement it. So if you do set that up ahead of time and make sure that those client expectations are met, then I think people are kind of ready to deal with that in terms of the online shopping.
That's a great point about setting it up in your terms and conditions, because it does kind of take that weight off of you and they just deal directly with the retailer or wherever it is they're getting that product.
Right. Because essentially eDesign is a consultation service, right? It's not the white glove full service design. And if you want that kind of level of service, then eDesign probably isn't a good fit for you. So you just kind of have to make sure that your clients understand that.
Right. Okay. Now let's see here. How would you recommend marketing yourself if you don't have a degree or background in design?
Well, you're speaking to the person who doesn't have a degree or a background in design. So I think that I get that question a lot from people. And I think that the design world is changing a lot. And so I think that you don't necessarily need to have as much formal training anymore, but it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you want to work for, a developer in a commercial setting or something, you might need a degree and some qualifications. But if you're starting your own eDesign business and you have a good eye for design and you can carry out the client service part of it, then I don't think that you necessarily need credentials. And that's my personal opinion. I have been able to create a successful business based on not being trained or qualified in that sort of formal way. But I think it's more about being business savvy and confident about what you're offering. And if you can prove that to a few people, the word is going to start to get out that you're a good designer. So it's more just proving that the skills that you have can take that business to the next level. And, spending time investing in that is going to be the thing that serves you well long term.
Okay, so Kristen is also asking, which sites do you recommend for setting up affiliate links?
So there are a bunch of affiliate networks out there. So the one that I use is called Reward Style, and that one is an application-based affiliate program. It started out in the fashion world and it's moved sort of more and more into the home decor world over the past couple of years. They most of the time kind of require that you have some sort of presence online. So if you have, a blog or if you have some sort of way of sharing content through Instagram, then they will maybe accept you. It's tricky. I mean, there's all kinds of different networks and different requirements. Reward Style is a good one. There are also some other umbrella programs like CJ Affiliate and Pepper Jam Network. I'm trying to think of what the other ones are because I just don't use them that often.
There's one called Share Sale as well. That's another affiliate. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of them have different percentages that you can earn. And one thing I learned this year, this is new to me, you can negotiate how much you earn. So if you're able to, prove that you're selling a bunch of product for a particular retailer, you can say, hey, I want that 5% to be bumped up to 10%. Now, of course, you have to have, sales before that happens, but it is something that is more fluid than you would expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And you definitely also, if you're dealing with the affiliate sales, check in to see which retailers are on those programs because each retailer will have their own percentage commission that you can get. So if you're dealing with one retailer and they're only willing to give you 3, but you've got another one that's willing to give you 10, well, all of a sudden that 10% is looking pretty good. So you can you can get really picky with the retailers that you want to work with. And as Chaney said, you can always get that jacked up if you're showing sales.
Exactly.
Okay, so Suzanne's asking, what program do you use for floor plans?
For floor plans. So there are 2 that I've used. So one is called Icovia or 2020. And that one is, sorry, my dog is barking. That's me. So Icovia is one that you can subscribe to. It's a subscribe to play software, if you will. You can also access it through retailers. So like Pottery Barn and West Elm have a floor planning tool that you can kind of go through the back end and try it out if you wanted to see how it works. And then the other one that I started using recently that I really like is called Home Styler. And that's a recent addition to my repertoire, but it's free as well. And you can do some 3D type stuff within that program as well. So all you have to do is create an account and then you're good to go.
Okay, now I do have another question here. Do you do any custom-made furniture, or are you only using your affiliate links?
So I stay away from custom most of the time because a lot of it you can't buy retail. So there,
You can't return.
and you can't return it. That's true. And I find that most of my clients, most eDesign clients, don't necessarily have the budget for custom pieces. So if you have clients who can, wonderful, and you find a way to do it so that they can buy themselves, that's great. But I think that as far as custom goes, like the farthest I've gone with that is using Etsy sellers to have something, custom made in terms of a pillow, or I've even had a custom ottoman made on Etsy. But again, the client kind of takes control. I tell them, here's the fabric I recommend, here's the Etsy seller that I recommend, and then you can kind of take it from there and make your purchases.
Okay. Now we've got questions coming in, but I am going to be wrapping this up just because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'll take a couple more questions and then we're just going to close down this webinar. So let me see here. I did see a final question. I'm not sure who it was from, but they were asking, how do you compete with companies like Decorist or Laurel and Wolf? How are you kind of comparing yourself or competing on that level?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I think that there are different people that are looking for those services. So I think that the audience for eDesign is actually huge. I think that there is a ton of room in this market right now, where a lot of people have never heard of eDesign, or even if they have, they've heard of one service or one person who does it. So if you're a designer, you're probably getting bombarded with, ads for things like Decorist and Laurel and Wolf and all that stuff, because you're already kind of looking for that stuff and you're getting retargeted. But I would say the vast majority of people that I have worked with or who I've talked to about eDesign have never heard of those platforms. So I say that to be encouraging, not because they aren't big and, kind of scary and intimidating, because they've maybe got all the clients, if you will. But there's a huge market out there. And so I think that if you're going to put the time and effort in to create a business and be professional, provide great service, all that kind of stuff, you're going to set yourself apart pretty quickly. And then the word of mouth networking is going to start to snowball on itself. It'll, build on itself again and again and again. And you'll be able to compete, quote unquote, but I don't even really think it's competing with these different services. It's just about setting up a good business for yourself.
Okay, now this is going to be our last question, and it's from Anna. How many clients are you able to handle per week, and how long is it normally to offer and deliver a final design?
So it depends on the season for me, actually. And the reason I say that is because, like I talked about at the beginning, I kind of have three arms of my business. So there are different times when I'm focused on different things. So I would say on average, I can work with about 8 clients a month. And that's, 2 new clients a week, basically. And so, when I get busy, I can push people out a little bit, or I'll say, I can't start until this date. And that's the number that I feel like I can work with well one-on-one, while balancing the other things that I have going on in my business. Now, if I was only doing eDesign clients, I think that number would be up a little bit. But I've sort of figured out that I personally enjoy doing a lot of different things and wearing a lot of different hats. So if you just want to do eDesign clients, I think that's great. And if you're, delivering the full sort of suite of eDesign services, then you can spend a lot of your time on that. For me, I would say on average, a room takes probably 10 hours to complete from start to finish. So that's, from the onboarding phase all the way through to delivering the final package.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, guys, but we are going to have to cut this one short. I do see that there's other questions coming in. So I guess what I can do is we can try to address those questions maybe after the fact. Chaney, I'm not sure if you, okay, perfect. So maybe what I can do is send your questions over to Chaney, and she can go ahead and respond to those. And we'll be following up also with an email. So you will get a link to the recorded version of the webinar. And I'll also include a link to your startup checklist Can I yeah,
Perfect. Yeah, you can include that, a link to the course.
Exactly.
Can be in the email.
We'll get all of that information in the follow-up email. We should have that out to you by the beginning of next week. So that's it for now. Thank you so much, Chaney. This was fantastic. It was a really
you're
great
so
webinar.
welcome. Awesome. Yeah, well, I hope it was helpful, and I got some great questions. So thank you all for contributing to that. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can hop on Instagram. That's a really easy way. You can DM me. It's Mix and Match Design Company. Super easy.
Okay. Well, that's it for now. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.